Really quick, let me just introduce myself. As you know, I'm Digital Adele from Hoops Profile. I break down draft picks all year round, follow the rookies throughout the NBA. This is the 2025 NBA draft class that we're going to be breaking down. The goal this year is to do 60 plus prospects in terms of draft evaluation. That means film work, not just watching them, but that for me, that means film work. That's breaking down specific plays, parts of their game, fundamentals of their game, what they need to improve on, what can translate to the NBA, and what can do better. So that's what I do over at Hoops Profile on YouTube. I've been doing that for several years now. And you can find me on social media under Digital Adele. Find me in the Discord where you're at right now, obviously under Digital Adele. And anywhere that our content is at. You can find me with that. Also, we got my co-host here, Matt Hannafin. Tell them about yourself, Matt.
I'm what you call a casual. I'm just but no, you can find me at mph underscore 824 underscore on Twitter. I'm not as extensive as Dell when it comes to breaking down prospects. You know what they say, a broken clock is right twice a day. That's how I kind of go, but I'm just kidding. Um, but anyway, yeah, man, I'm ready to talk some draft. I really don't have much to say about myself. This is like the worst introduction, first impression.
That's all right, man. No worries. No worries. That's fine. You are so let me tell you a little bit about Matt real quick before we get into the draft. He's actually very educated on what makes players functional, what makes a good prospect. He's just very modest. So we got to get Matt's confidence up in his draft analytic ability. Make sure you let him know after this how you feel and comment on the videos about these takes. So what we're going to do, we're going to go in reverse order from 10 to 1. I'll give one of mine, and then I'll let Matt talk about one of his, and I'll alternate between the two drafts on the screen, is what I'll do. So real quick, give me a thumbs up emoji in the chat if you can see the draft content that I have showing on the screen. Can you view it? Is it clear? Is it pixelated? How does it look for you? Just quick thumbs up if it's good, thumbs down if it's bad. And yes, Diego, Tyrese Hunter is lighting up UConn. So is Haggerty. Haggerty is very good. Hunter's actually been very good throughout that game.
All right, cool. We can get in a minute. We can get to who hasn't been good.
Yes, I believe we will. I believe we will. So let's just get started. So we're gonna get rolling here. And so I'm going to start off with my 10th overall pick in the 2025 way too early mock draft that I did. And he is one Asa Newell, 6'10, 220 pounds from the University of Georgia. He is an absolute freak athlete, man. When it comes to being explosive, blocking shots, sliding his feet, he's a freak athlete, man. I really like Asa Newell's game. He's got a little bit of range. He's still working on his jump shot. It's not a finished product by any means. Ball handling isn't there quite yet. The fundamentals aren't there quite yet. He has a nice jump hook over his right shoulder using that left hand, but he's got to work on some more of the fundamentals on the low block. But he can certainly do a lot for a team already, in my opinion, with his length, his athleticism, his ability to get on the glass, block shots, put back dunks. If this kid gets that ultra competitive edge, watch out. He could be a problem at the next level in the NBA. So that's my 10th pick in our way too early.
He was
mock
kind of
draft.
my board too.
Awesome. I can't wait for you to get a chance to talk about where you put him. A matter of fact, we can do that. Where did you put him on your board?
No, I had him at 10.
Oh, you had him also.
I had him in the same spot.
Oh, I love it whenever a draft analysis comes together. I like it. What did you like about him? Tell me a little bit about your perspective on Asa Newell.
I mean, I thought, like you mentioned the athletic. That's something that immediately pops off the page. Just a couple things that I want to see him improve specifically. To me, he gets out physical too much for my liking. And I know he's young, and I know he's like it says on the screen 220 pounds. Like he's got to get to be an NBA caliber big, specifically with the traits that he has. He's got to get stronger. That's just like that's number one for me because I feel like when you get like backing down in the post or whatnot, he's just not as strong. Um, and so that's something that I want to see him improve. But the other things, like the other thing that I want to see him improve is really his shooting. Like I think he needs to not me, he doesn't need to be like a more functional spacer, but I just want to see him like continue to improve that shooting touch, specifically from the mid range, and then as time goes on, expand further out because I think he's kind of the size to where like I don't know if I trust him defending NBA caliber big like NBA caliber fives quite yet. I think there needs to be work there, but I also don't know if he's like. Do you think he's quick enough to defend fours consistently? And I think if the answer is yes, then I think he will probably need to expand his shooting range because he's kind of like that tweener. Like remember Tyler Smith, the guy
Yes.
from G League Ignite? Like that's kind of where I'm at with him, just in terms of the body and the frame. I know they're two different players in terms of their skill sets, but that's kind of where I see him right now. But I do think like there's a lot of potential there. Like he's very good around the rim. He's a very good vertical spacer. Um, he's not a bad rebounder. Like he's solid in that department as well. And so that's kind of like what I like about him initially. I think you've watched more of him than I have. Obviously, like when we do these, I've only watched these guys maybe one or two games, and it's very early in a long 30+ game season for most of these guys, and so um, there's obviously a whole lot of time for these guys to improve their skill set. Like imagine if we talked about Eve Meesey at this time last year. Like it would have been a completely different conversation than what we had in May, June. Like so there's still plenty of time for all of these guys, including Asa, to improve. But those are just a few things that I liked about him, and those are just a few other things that I want to see him improve upon as time goes on.
Absolutely. You hit on a great point about him needing to get stronger, and he needs to get stronger, particularly in his base. His legs are really thin, but he's explosive. That'll come, though. He's super young. He's a freshman. The stats on this Fanspo page say he's 6'11", 220, but he's closer to probably 6'10", 200 even. I don't think he's 220 personally. But he will get stronger. I think he has the mobility and the fluidity to be able to guard wings at the next level. I think he can do that. He has very good tracking, very good timing on his shot blocking. He stays down, doesn't really get in foul trouble. The one thing about his shooting that needs to improve is his follow through. He has this funky release where he shoots like a knuckleball out of his hand. And that's what really is, I think, the crux of his issues when it comes to shooting the ball. But overall, he's got nice lefty form. I think he's on balance. He doesn't really fade away or lean left or right. It really is more of how the ball comes off his hand, in my opinion. And I think that's something that definitely he can smooth out. And also, as you mentioned, he's very young. By the end of the season, he could look completely different, just like Eve Meesey did by the end of his college season. So he could absolutely climb on this board, depending on how he develops, how he continues to shape his mindset in terms of aggressiveness. It'll be very interesting to see how that progresses. So moving on to number 9, I had France's own Nolan Traore. He's a excellent point guard, man. He's really, really good, man. I don't know what they're doing over in France. I don't know what they put in the water, but they are churning out the prospects. He's about 6'4", 185 pounds. He can shoot the rock, man. He can facilitate. He's quick, crafty around the basket. I like him, man. I like him a lot. What's going to be interesting to see, and what I've found is typically the case with these French prospects coming in, outside of Wimby, who's a freaking alien, how they translate in perimeter defense. Like, how are they going to fit into a defensive system? If you take a look at Zachary Rezacher, his best ability on the defensive end coming out of Europe was his off-ball defense and being able to play team defense. Traore is going to be able to do that, but how is he going to hold up point of attack especially being only 185 pounds. It's going to be very interesting to see how he holds up. I know you didn't really scout any international guys, but who do you have at number 9?
I have VJ.
VJ Edgecrumbie.
Yeah, I have him 9.
There he is.
He is so insanely athletic. Like it's crazy how athletic he is. The one thing that popped out to me, I watched his game against Tennessee this morning, and that was the most extensive tape that I at least have watched on him so far this season.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that stuck out to me was like I just love his instincts defensively. Um, I think he moves his feet really well. Like there were times, or especially early in that game, like they were switching 1 through 5 for the most part, but for him specifically, like there were certain actions and certain times where he was like jumping out, like he was like jump switching, and he wasn't going super early to where like the opposing ball handler was like splitting the double
Right.
or anything like that. And then with him, like he wasn't really involved in the offense, but when he was, I didn't hate some of the decision making that he had. Um, but the problem is that the crux of the issue, like the percentages are just so bad. Like the shooting is not good. Like he was getting downhill against Tennessee, at least to some extent. Um, but like it just the shooting in general has been bad to start the season. I don't it's like sub 40%. He's shooting like 29% from deep. And then you look at some of his games where I know Bart Torvik, which is like an advanced analytics like college basketball site, they track like how good you are versus like certain caliber of teams. And they have like a top 50 metric or something like how you're doing against like top 50 teams. And he has like an effective field goal percentage. It was like 37% with like a true shooting of like 30. Like the shooting's just been bad. It's been really, really bad.
Right.
And I think that's going to be a problem as time goes on if that's not corrected, just because like more teams are going to be ducking under screens, more teams aren't going to allow him to get downhill. Um, and for him as like a playmaker, I'm not saying he's a great playmaker because he's not, but like his potential as a playmaker, that the ceiling of that dwindles if you're not a good shooter. Um, and so like that's something that's going to have to be corrected. And then in addition to like there are just certain times where he just doesn't know how to control his athleticism. Like sometimes he's going 100 miles an hour and he's trying to jump out. He's trying to dunk on dudes like 5 feet from the rim, and it's just like I don't know if that's necessarily the best idea. Like he can hone that in a little bit. He's still very young, and obviously all of these guys, or at least for the most part, are very young. And so again, like this is their first time playing this, playing college basketball where the spacing may not be as good. Maybe he excels a little bit more at the NBA level. But I just wasn't very impressed with what I saw offensively for the most part, because again, like he wasn't super involved with the offense. But defensively, I loved what I saw. Like I think he's a very good weak side rim protector. I think he uses his hands very well. Like I think he's someone like sometimes he gets a little too handsy, but I think he just uses his hands well, like to generate deflections and get steals and block shots, and like I think he has solid dexterity. I think he doesn't look like the biggest guy in the world, but I think he is like sneaky, like very strong when he's on the perimeter defensively. So those are just some things that I liked about him. But the reason why I had him so low is just the offensive concerns, because again, like against some of these good teams, like Tennessee was probably his best one, I would imagine. But against some of these good teams, like it just was not good on that end, and I don't know if I can have him in my top 8 or my top set or like whatever, if he's just that bad offensively. I don't know.
Well, it's very early in the season, but you bring up a great point that the talent is higher than his actual production on the court at this point. There's a number of reasons for that. I don't think he's 6'5". I really don't. I think he's closer to 6'3". He doesn't look to be as tall as they're making him out to be. I think he's going to excel better in a more open environment, an open floor environment, because as you mentioned, he's uber athletic. And we're talking about VJ Edgecombe for people that just joined us. And for VJ, I put it this way. It was like somebody first learning to drive But that first car was a Dodge Charger Hellcat. And that is VJ Edgecombe. He doesn't really know when to use his athleticism. He doesn't know exactly how to use it. He just knows he's really, really athletic. And that's where a lot of his problems stem from. So if you watch him play, he puts himself in a lot of bad positions, takes a lot of bad driving angles to the basket, and like you said, just tries to out athletic people. And that's not going to work. He's got to really focus in on the details and learn. They have great coaching staff at Baylor. So if he commits himself to it, he can definitely improve as the season goes on, which I expect him to do. 37% from the field, not going to cut it. Very encouraging, though. 3.5 assists, 6 rebounds, 12.5 points per game, even while he's learning. But the turnovers, he turns the ball over a lot, doesn't quite know where to go with the ball. The mental side of the game, the fundamentals of the game are what's lost on him. His shot overall, he has a nice looking jump shot. Again, it's just when to shoot, where to get your shots from. Within the flow of the offense, I believe is his biggest issue. I have him higher on my board. I had him 7th on my board, strictly because of the upside, age, and athleticism of the player.
Okay. No, I mean, like, I do like how he impact winning in the sense of like he's going for rebounds. He's playing defensive, like even when his shot isn't fun. Like that's something that I do appreciate from him.
He plays hard all the time. That's the other thing. Plays hard all the time. So with that, let's move on to my next pick on my board. That was Kamon Malowacz. I watched him a lot in the Olympics, and I watched probably 3 games of his so far at Duke. And he's 7-footer, 240 some odd pounds, long arms. He's a cerebral player. He's a very cerebral, smart player. He has nice footwork on the block, has a nice jump hook. He has more athleticism than I believe he even realizes. If he was more aggressive, I think he'd be even higher up on my board, but he just isn't. He isn't aggressive. He plays closer to the floor a lot of times than I think his athleticism gives him, allows him to. He could play a lot higher above the rim. That being said, he still averages 6.5 rebounds so far in this early season, and 9 points per game. And that's with Con Knuppel demanding the ball a lot. Knuppel, and then obviously Cooper Flagg commands the ball a lot. So Cooper, who? I'm not sure. Never heard of that guy. And then also they have Tyrese Proctor on that team. So he just doesn't have a lot of opportunities to, he has to go get his opportunities. But he also sets good screens. He's a good screen setter. Coming out of last year's draft, there was a lot of bigs in that draft. Not all of them were good screen setters. Like Edey, just by the nature of Zach Edey being a behemoth, he could set screens, but he wasn't a good screen setter. Didn't always take the best angles. Wasn't always quick enough to get there. And then, you had somebody like Yves Missi, who was a very good screen setter. And then there's someone else named Kel'el Ware, who struggled. Where is he, by the way? Where is Ware?
Yeah, where? Yeah, I don't know who that guy is. Where is he?
Where's Kel'el Ware? But anyway, yeah, he wasn't a very good screen setter coming out of college. That's one thing Malowacz does very well. He sets screens well. He rebounds. He's tough. He's got quick hands. But he's more athletic. He needs to use his athleticism more, in my opinion. So that's who I had 8th overall. Who did you have at number 8, Matt?
I just want to point out that I did have Malowacz 7. To me, he's just gigantic. Like, 7'2", 250. Like, I don't know what his measurables are going to be once the season ends, like what his wingspan, standing reach, all that stuff. But I feel like it's going to be towards the top of the class. Like, to me, he's just a gigantic human being. To me, like, he's improved, at least from the games that I've seen. Like, I watched him against Army, and then I watched their game against who did they play? They played Arizona, right?
Arizona. Yep, Arizona.
My mind's like blanking on me. To me, he's improved defensive, like just how to position himself. and drop. And like something that Sean Shire's doing is like they're also playing him higher up, like toward the level of the screen. Um, and like at certain points. And I think he for him being 7'2", like I think he's pretty mobile for someone and he's pretty nimble for someone who is 7'2". And I know like he's another guy who I just like how he again, I don't know how long he's been playing basketball, but he's a guy like he knows how to play in the pick and roll. And I think for him, like he's someone that has really good hands. Like he's still the raw in his game. Like he doesn't have much of a role outside of being a screen and roll like that kind of big, but I have been impressed with what I've seen so far because I didn't know much about I didn't watch him in the Olympics or anything like that, but he was someone who I've been like pleasantly surprised by. In addition to Knepel, and then obviously with that Cooper Flag guy, whoever that guy is.
That guy, I've never
Um,
heard of him.
yeah, he's yeah. Apparently, someone said number one pick. I don't. Maybe we'll
I
we'll
don't
see
know. Yeah, I guess. I mean,
as we go on. We'll see. Um, but he's someone that I've liked watching a lot so far, and like he may not need to be super duper athletic for just how big he is. Maybe I'm just overstating how big he is, but he may not need to be like crazy athletic.
well, but
Like I do
he's
think there is some athleticism there, but
there is, but he's not Donovan Klingeth big, and he's not Zach Edey big. He's big, but he's not that big. So I think he's going to have to use his athleticism more if he wants to move up the big board. You see what I mean? Like
fair.
scouts are going to want to see that. GMs are going to want to see that. They're going to want to see you dominate at the college level to get into that top 5 if that's where he wants to be.
That's fair. Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to watch. Him at Duke, all that talent, can they put it all together? And will he be able to showcase more of that defensive prowess, as you mentioned, being able to play a little bit higher on the perimeter, play at the level, so to speak? And then, can his drop coverage and weak side shot blocking continue to shine, which it has? He's been very good. Like I said, I just think he's a very cerebral player. He's a very cerebral guy that thinks the game. Let's see. Number 7, I had Edgecrombie, and number 6, down a few spots on my big board, is Con Knipple. He is the guard also from Duke that I spoke about earlier. He is approximately 6'5". I know they have 6'7" on here. I don't think he's 6'7". I think he's like 6'5". But he's all of that 217. He's a sturdy player. Like, he's solid, man. People cannot take advantage of him on the post. He's got really quick hands. He's got a nose for the ball. He's always around the ball. Whenever you talk about Heat culture and taking charges and diving for loose balls, he is the epitome of Heat culture in terms of diving for loose balls, being in the right position, playing team basketball, making the right plays. This kid is a knockdown, flat out shooter as well. Absolutely can shoot the cover off the ball. Really surprised at his ability to take people to the basket out of the triple threat position. He isn't like going to wow you with his ball handling, but he's just very savvy, has an excellent feel for the game, and he'll also surprise you. He's got a little bit of vertical athleticism. He'll dunk on your head. I like the kid, man. He's been very impressive to start the season for the Duke Blue Devils. Have you watched any of Con Knipple?
Oh yeah. No, yeah. No, he's an awesome shooter. Like he's very something that I like about him is no matter what, it's always very consistent. You're getting like it's the same shooting form, it's the same shot mechanics. Like it's all like you want that consistency, whether he's moving, not moving, whatever the case is. And I am with you. Like one of the things I had in my notes toward the top was like he has a nose for the ball defensively. However, I do have some concern, or at least not maybe not concerns, but questions about like how is he going to handle that in an NBA setting? Because I don't know how laterally quick he actually is.
100% right. You're spot on with that.
Like that's where it's like I love the him getting in people's jerseys. I love the nose that he has for the basketball. But like I think my biggest question with him is just how he fares athletically on the defensive end. Because I don't know, like he's just not to me. He's not the quickest laterally. Like that's probably the biggest concern that I have. He's also not someone like I like when he gets downhill, like when he's able to create as a secondary creator and get downhill and make decisions and his decision making. Like I thought all of that was very, very good. But then I also have my questions is like, all right, how much is he actually going to get to the rim? Like to me, he's not overly explosive. Like he doesn't have a great first step. He could probably take advantage of certain players who are, who overclose out on him because he's a knockdown shooter. Like you'll probably run into that a few different times throughout his pro career. But I just don't know, like, if he's just consistently taking dudes off the dribble and how limited he actually is in that aspect. Because I don't, he has an okay handle. It's not great. It's not terrible, but I am very much with you in the sense like I also had him 6 on mine. I just love he's more than just a shooter too. Like I think he that goes to my point that I just like he's a very good decision maker. He's a very good connector. Like he'll set screens, he'll involve himself in the game in that way off the ball. And that's something that I like a lot about him. He's not just a guy who's just gonna, sit on the perimeter and wait for him to get the ball. Like he's a guy who's gonna be active and um move within the offense. And so that's something that I like a lot about him. But I just have questions about him athletically. Um, and then kind of like I don't ever expect him to be like a primary creator. Like I don't think that's the ceiling for him. I wrote
No,
in my notes that I think he to me he feels more of like a 3-and-D connector. Like he's going to be a guy that connects the offense together, but I don't know how much of like a 3-level scoring potential we'll see from him as a pro. Like I see it more of like, yeah, he can 1-2 dribble pull up. He can maybe get to the rim a few different times, but I don't know how consistent it'll actually be. Um, and so those are just some questions that I have with him, but
so there.
I love everything that he does on a basketball court, just from like a team perspective. Like he knows how to play in a team environment, in a team setting. Like he knows his role and he very much excels at his role. And so he's someone that I like a lot. And again, he's only, 19 years old. And so he's gonna improve over time. Maybe he does improve some of that stuff, and maybe I am um, you know, wrong in 3, 4, 5 years, whatever. But he's definitely going to be a guy that I'm rooting for because he is someone who just from the moment you put on the tape, he's someone that definitely pops off in the ways that you want him to at
he
this stage of his college career because he plays like a 4-year guy.
he absolutely pops off the tape, and he does play like a 4-year guy. He's ahead of his time mentally with the game. He has a great feel for the game. But when you talk about as a connector, the one thing I love about him is he's a great shooter, but he doesn't settle for threes. A lot of young, great shooters just settle for threes. He attacks those closeouts. He keeps people off balance. That's how he gets in the lane so well. Is because they never know, is he going to actually shoot it, or is he going to come off the triple threat, give me a jab step, go to the hoop, ball fake, go to the hoop. He does that and mixes that up so well. And he'll also rotate the ball. The ball doesn't just stop and he chuck it up or drive. He'll rotate it, swing the ball. And that's the thing about him and the other guy that may go number 1 overall is they really play for each other and they're very unselfish in that way. And when we talk about him defensively, his foot speed is an issue, but because he's so smart, he plays the angles extremely well. So he doesn't get destroyed off the dribble like you think it would for how slow his feet are. Because he's so cerebral and he's a legit 217 pounds. So when people hit into him, they just stop. Like he's really strong. So I really like Con Knipple. So we both had him number 6. Who'd you have number 5?
I had Trey Johnson.
Oh, Trey Johnson from Texas. Here
I didn't even
is.
go over my number 8. I forgot about
You
that.
skipped your number 8.
I'm
Let's
planting my flag here, man. I like Derek Queen.
all right, let's go back to number 8 really quick. So I don't have Derek Queen yet in my top 10. Tell me why you like Derek Queen. What do you like about him?
I am a sucker for bigs who are good at passing. And he's someone that, like, when you get him in, like, again, for him, I think the biggest challenge is he's not athletic at all.
Right.
Um,
Right.
like that's my biggest, like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have him number 8 because of this. Like he's not 7'1", 7'2", but the thing that I like about him, like he's improved. His shooting touch, I think, like he has an okay shooting touch from like the in between game. Most of what he does is like back to the basket, and so like again, maybe that's not the reason why I should have him number 8. But I think the reason why I have him number 8 is just because I love how much like the 2.2 assists on the screen does not at all do him justice. Like I think he has an excellent feel for the game. Like he's very good at spotting open cutters and spotting, players from beyond the arc, and he's very reactive in that way. Something else that I like about him a lot too is like he's very strong. Like when he puts his shoulder into you in the post, like he's most likely gonna dislodge you from him. Like he's very strong in that aspect. But I just love his feel like just when you and he's pretty mobile for a guy who's 6'10", 246. At least again, I don't know how accurate these measurements are. That feels about right for him, but
Well, let
we'll
me ask
see.
you this though, Matt. So let me ask you this. So he can score at the college level because he's physically stronger than most of the guys that he plays against, right? He's very crafty as well, has a great feel for the game, nice jump hook package, excellent touch around the rim. As you see, he shoots close to 60% from the field, which is mainly in right underneath the basket where he plants his flag. And he can rebound the basketball because he's so physical. What traits of his to put him in the top 10 do you think translate to the NBA? Because he's a limited athlete. We definitely
I would
both agree on that.
say I would say his passing and his low post scoring ability. Like he's more of like a throwback old school. Like he has very good footwork. Um, and not saying that like we need to bring that back in the NBA, but I think those are two skills that could translate for him for being like 6'10", 6'11", however tall he actually is. Um, those are the two trends. One like he's also like solid defensively, just where he positions himself.
So
Like
conversely, though, what I'm hearing is that he's an old school big that's not athletic, thrown into a pace and space 5-out type of NBA. That's what I heard you say.
to some extent.
So I'm not saying you're wrong. Don't take it that way. I'm not saying you're wrong. He may be. I need to see more tape of him against more, better teams and competition because I
That's
am
the crux of it. That's the crux of most of these guys. But yes,
because
I
I
want to
am
see them do it against like he was awesome against like Villanova, for example. But I want to see him do it more consistently.
yeah, absolutely. I want to see him do it more consistently. I want to see how pace plays a factor into him defensively, offensively, his ability to operate and score and help your team in that way. So I'm very interested. Now he can help you, like you said. He can score on the block. He can rebound. He's going to be in the right place. He's a heady player, and he can facilitate a little bit. So I am interested. He's just outside of my top 10. I don't think I have him in the top 15 at the moment. He may be, maybe he might be 13th or 14th in the future for me. But I need to see it against better competition. But I do understand it, and I do see where you have it. I'm going to move us along to number 5, Trey Johnson on your board. And let's talk about that. You have him at 5. Why do you like Trey Johnson at 5?
I think like obviously the 3 level scoring. That's something that just immediately pops off the page. Like he is a dynamite scorer and a dynamite shooter. Like he can get hot and he can get hot in bunches. As you can see by the 21.2 points per game on the screen. Like
As a freshman.
he's yeah, as a freshman. I think for him too, like something that I do like about him is his decision making. Like I think he's not. I mean, there might be a couple times here and there, depending on how like hot he is, that he will force shots. But I think he also plays within the flow of like what they're trying to do offensively, and sometimes just the ball finds him in the right moment, and he's able to get up a shot. Defensively, is something that I really like from him too. Like he's always it feels like to me like he's always in the right positions and he knows like he's always like like you can see like talking to teammates and whatnot he communicating like where to be on the floor to given time. Like to me he's also like he's 6'6", 190. I don't know if that does him enough justice because I do think he is like a good like 6'7", 6'8", but I also do think he's he's stronger than 190. At least again from the initial games that I've watched. I know it's against lower level competition, but
So
it's against competition nonetheless. But uh, he, I think the three level scoring, like in today's NBA, you want three level scoring, especially from a guy from a wing like him. I don't know why it says point guard on the screen. He's definitely not a point guard.
he actually
Um,
is, though. He can. He does both. He's an on
is
ball
he?
guard. Yes. He can facilitate and run your offense and initiate. He's good enough ball handler to do that. He does it quite often, but he's also an off ball guard too. He's a combo guard. So he can play on
I see.
ball, he
That's
can
what
play
I
off
would
ball.
say. I would say he's more of a combo guard and like
But
a
that's
point forward than a point guard.
but that's because he can score the way he does. He's the leading scorer in the SEC as a freshman. He's number 2 on my board. The way he's played to start the season, we're not just talking about his ability to score, the way he carries himself, he's the leader of that team. They all rally to him. Anytime there's a stoppage in play, he's rallying the troops. He's telling people what needs to happen. He's the coach on the floor. Trey Johnson, to me, is going to be one of these guys that goes way higher than people realize, because he's not only does he have the tangible athletic traits, but he's got the intangibles as well. He's a leader. To use Ethan's words, he's an alpha. He's the alpha guy. He's the alpha guy. Doesn't back down from a challenge. He's a knockdown shooter as well, man. He can shoot the cover off the ball, and he's fast in the open court. Fast. Now, one of the things and opportunities he has to improve on is when he's shooting on the move from the 3-point line, he has a bad tendency to over rotate his lower half to where his right leg rotates from right to left, and it can swing off his motion to shoot. When he sets his feet and he goes straight up and down, he's just a knockdown shooter from anywhere on the court. It doesn't matter how deep it is. He's just a knockdown shooter. And he'll do it from the mid-range. He'll do it from the outside. He can get all the way to the basket. The 2 assists per game do not illustrate how well he keeps the ball moving for that team and initiate offense for that team. It's very deceiving that he only has 2 assists per game.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
But yeah,
that goes in like the decision making part of it. Again, I just don't like. Again, when I think of point guard, I just don't. I mean, he does run that offense,
right? But he's not the take you off the dribble, dropping dimes Isaiah Stevens type. I get what you're saying for sure.
Yeah, like I think of him more of like. I'm not good with comparisons.
No, there's not really a good comparison for him, to be honest.
Yeah, like that again, like his decision making, I do like a lot, but it's for him like some of these other guys. I want to see them. They recently played someone good, right? I didn't see it.
Yeah, I've watched so many games though, I can't remember which game we're referring to, but yeah, he's actually right. He's very, he's played very well. I'll tell you what, I watched one game where he didn't do much in the first half. They were playing very physical with him. I actually did a breakdown on it. It was against Mississippi Valley State, and their on ball and off ball pressure was superb for a small college, and it really took him out of his game in the first half. In the second half, he lit them up. He was unguardable in the second half. And I just thought it was very telling for his makeup as a young player to be this highly touted guy. I play at a big school, and to have that kind of first half and not to let it bother him the whole game, to come back, that just shows a lot about his heart, a lot about his resilience and his leadership as a freshman. So I'm really high on Trey Johnson. Like I said, I have him number 2 on my board overall. My number 5 is Dylan Harper for Rutgers. He is the point guard. He is extremely tall for a point guard, 6'6", just like Trey Johnson. So just real quick, people had Dylan Harper listed at 6'8" coming out of high school. He's not 6'8", but he's 6'6". Really? Yeah, they did. But he's 215. He's really sturdy. Now, I know comparisons aren't my thing, and I don't like comparisons, but who he reminds me of a lot is the transfer into Arkansas. DJ Wagner is who he reminds me of. And the reason why I say that, as a freshman, he's having a lot of the same struggles that DJ is. He's a good athlete, he's strong, he can put the ball on the floor, but his processing's a bit slow. When to get his shots is a bit off, and his form on his jumper, just like Wagner's, needs a lot of work. I have grave concerns about Dylan Harper because he was my number 2 for a while coming out of the early season, like the preseason rankings. He was my second guy in the big board, but he's fallen all the way down to number 5 for me because of the concerns with his jump shot. Like his elbow's out a little bit, his follow through and his release point is very low.
Yeah.
But he can get to the rack. He can facilitate. He's got good vision, right? I think the issue with his passing is more the location of his passes than his vision. He sees it, but he needs to get better with his pinpoint accuracy. But he's good defensively as well. He uses his long wingspan and his height and weight well as a point of attack defender. I'm a little concerned about how that field goal percentage in the paint translates in the NBA against better athletes, because they haven't really played competition that's going to be able to limit him as a guard, that big of a guard in the paint. What do you think about Dylan Harper? Where do you have him on your big board?
Did you watch the Kennesaw game yesterday?
I did not.
Okay, I watched that. That was another one that I watched this morning. There was something that stuck out to me that was a little bit of a concern that wasn't what it like. I am completely with you on the shot and the passing. Like I do think I think I'm probably a little bit higher on his processing speed, but I do think there's some like accuracy concerns to some extent with his passing. But the thing that stuck out to me was a couple of things. At least at the point of attack yesterday, like Kennesaw, it was their first road game of the season. So like, yeah, Kennesaw is probably the best team that they've faced all season. Again, not incredible competition, but competition nonetheless. They lost the game, but
Right.
he got ate up on screens more than like he did to me. Like he doesn't his screen nav isn't that good.
Yeah.
Or at least
Well,
it wasn't as good as I was expecting it to be, or at least like when I watched the first half against Merrimack, like that was like okay, you can see it there.
right.
But in this game, in this environment, I was like a little bit disappointed in that sense to where to me, I don't feel like he snakes around it that well. Like he doesn't sink his hips. He doesn't like
It's a fundamentals issue.
himself.
Yeah, it's a fundamentals issue. Yeah.
And so like to me, he was a little like too tall when he was trying to navigate those screens. And then something else that again, this can happen on a possession by possession basis with anyone, not just him. But the communication defensively, I don't think was the best. Like there were times where they were like miscommunicating, like off screens, where there was like switching or whatever the case was, and it led to some open Kennesaw baskets, and he was at the crux of it. And so that's where it was like, I have some general concern. I mean, again, more so questions because it's still early in the season, but like, is this going to be a consistent issue? And like, how does that affect things over the course of the season for them and him as a prospect if these things continue to happen? Again, it's just one game.
Right.
But those were things that like stuck out to me. Just like just parts of his game. Like he was a guy who defended 94 feet. He was a guy who like the effort was there for the most part defensively, but there was some communication stuff. There was some stuff where like he would just die on screens, and it's just like you're 6'5", yeah, like you're 6'5", 215, like you're a strong guy. You have a good like physical build. Like I don't think you should be eaten up this easily.
No, but but it's because, so when we talk about fundamentals, just for the audience, when I say it's a fundamental thing, whenever you're fighting over a screen, there's two ways to do it, right? So if the screen comes, you get up as close as you can to the ball handler, you get your left foot, if it's on the left side, up above the screen, and you slide across. If it's on the right side, you get your right foot up above the screen and you slide across and maintain guarding position. Or conversely, if you're going to trail, you have to lock onto the hip of the ball handler and you have to get that right foot, if it's on the left side, around so you're in trail and you don't get wiped out on the screen. So it's a footwork thing. It's not he's not athletic enough to do it. It's not that he doesn't have the build to do it, like he can't bend his knees to be in a stance. It's more the foot placement of it. And that's something in college under a coach like Rick Pitino, they're going to coach out of him eventually. I guarantee you by the end of the season, he won't be navigating those screens so poorly by the end of the season. I can almost guarantee you that.
Pitino's at St. John's, man.
Is not St. Oh, jeez. Correct.
No, but I know what you mean. Like that is, but even like there were a couple times. Again, this is I might be misremembering a little bit, but even like just going under screen, he wasn't getting through them at least as well as I would like him to be.
Yeah.
But or not as I would like him to be, but like you know what I mean. Just
right.
If I'm looking at it from like a pure valuation standpoint.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. So
I had him 3, by the way.
So you had him 3rd on your list. I'll go to my 4th. My 4th on my list is Igor Denman. Igor Denman is the 6'9" Russian point guard. When you talk about the ability to facilitate, wow, can he pass the basketball? That dude is really good at passing the basketball, and he's a knockdown shooter. Not just stand still, catch and shoots, but off the dribble as well. He is a nightmare to deal with. His BYU team, they have one other really good player, and that's about it. But he's scary, dude. He's that size, that length, the ability to handle the way he does. And it's not even really that he overhandles or over dribbles. He's got a really nice hezzy. He utilizes that hezzy well, snakes off screens well, and he can throw lobs, he can throw bounce passes, he can facilitate in transition. He's not that great at defense, but he's really good in the passing lanes because of his length and athleticism. But man, he's a nightmare offensively to deal with. What are your thoughts on Igor, and where'd you have him on your board?
Let me just say this right now so people don't get mad at me after they see my piece of crap board. I shifted my top 4, or at least not top 4. I didn't shift Cooper Flag around, whoever that guy is. I shifted 2 through 4 around like probably no less than a handful of times. I actually ended up with Igor 2. And I'm actually like, again, some of it is like, again, this is so early in the season and BYU's played nobody. So take so much of what I'm about to say or so much of what you've seen so far with the lightest grain of salt the world's ever seen.
Just a pinch.
Yeah, just a pinch. But the passing ability, the accuracy of the passes.
Yes.
The instinctual passing. We've talked about it before with a certain guy named Isaiah Stevens. Is that how you say it? Isaiah Stevens?
I think he's Miami Heat's own Isaiah Stevens.
Listen, he might be. If they call him up.
Don't break
but the thing
my
with
heart.
him is
Don't
like
break my heart like that.
Listen, I'm just preparing you for the worst.
Back to Igor.
Back to Igor Denman. The thing with him, like he makes multiple reads at once. Like we've talked about that with Isaiah Stevens, like several different times. Like he knows how to read, tag defenders, guys who are multiple passes away, this, that, and yet. Like he knows how to read that stuff. And I think with the sense that I get with Igor, like he's a guy who can do the exact same thing, and he's bigger at 6'9". To me, he moves kind of funny, like just him just running. Like I don't know why. He just moves funny, but like
right.
To me, I think I'm higher on his defense than you are.
Yeah, probably because I'm not very high on it. Off ball, I am though. He's got good off ball instincts.
That's what I was about to say. On ball, it's a little shaky here or there.
Right.
Off ball, I loved what I saw defensively. Like he knows how to position himself. He knows how to be in the right place at the right time. Like
Right.
I think he's good in the passing lanes. I think he had one block against Idaho where he literally shoved the ball back in the dude's face. Um, as he went up for a shot, like he to me, and I think that part of his game that I like a lot, and I think he can be a really good team defender.
Where did
At
you
the
have him
next
on
level.
your board?
Two.
Oh, okay. Oh, he was your number 2 overall. Okay.
Again, I said I shifted 2 through 4 around like several different times.
I got
It's
you.
so close. It's so
Yeah.
close. Like
No.
it's not a big gap between 2 through 4 in my mind. I went a little bit again, this is where I talk like I preface by saying like it's a little controversial in some sense.
Right.
Um it's probably gonna I'm probably gonna have an egg on my face once June comes, but that's neither here nor there.
This is nobody's
Um
going to remember this big board by June. Like nobody's going to remember. It's way too early to even nail any of this stuff down. It's getting a little chippy in that UConn game. Little scuffle just broke out.
yeah, I'm seeing it now.
So you had Trey Jones third.
That's your word.
I had Trey Jones third.
You mean Johnson?
Trey Johnson. Jeez, I got to stop looking at the TV. So I had Trey Johnson third. Your fourth is Ace Bailey. I had Ace Bailey as my number 2 overall. And I'm going to tell you why.
Well, I thought you said you had Trey 2.
I had Trey 3. I apologize. I misspoke.
Okay.
I misremembered in my old age. But I have Ace Bailey number 2, and I'm going to tell you why I have Ace Bailey number 2. He's 6'10". He's 200 pounds. He's got pogo sticks for legs.
Yeah.
He rebounds. He blocks shots. He has an amazing touch around the basket. And he is a knockdown shooter from anywhere on the court. Anywhere. Whenever I tell you, I don't take this lightly. I'm not saying he's these players, so don't get started on that. But the shooting ability, the ability for a guy that size to square his feet up quick as a hiccup, no matter what body position he's in, and square his shoulders and shoot, is very similar to people like Carmelo Anthony. Very similar to people like Kevin Durant. And I don't take that lightly when I say that. Now, the rest of the game, he doesn't have their handles. He doesn't have their frame in terms of like size. He's not thick as Carmelo. He's not as good off the dribble as either one of those two guys. But just the ability to dot his feet and get right into his jump shot on balance and bury it from anywhere is just like those guys. He's a scary offensive talent. Scary offensive talent. He's also a good defender as well. I have concerns. He's very light in the pants. He's going to have to really work on his strength, but he's also very inflexible. Even though he's a fluid mover, he doesn't bend his knees well. That doesn't bode well for his long-term health. He could have knee problems. He could have all kind of ankle issues or Achilles issues from being a very upright athlete like that. He needs to work on his flexibility. He needs to work on his strength. He needs to work on his ball handling. But those are the only 3 things that I see as holes in his game. I'm very, very high on Ace Bailey. And I had Dylan Harper higher than him to start. I'm very, very high on him now. What are your thoughts on Ace Bailey?
This is where I get angry at the measurement. Are we sure he's 6'10"?
He's every bit of it with long arms. He's tall, dude, and he's long.
Maybe I'm just seeing shit wrong, which is very possible. I think he's like the same size as Dylan Harper.
He's not. He's definitely not.
He definitely looks like a solid 6'7" to me. That's neither here nor there.
Right.
Maybe I just watched the wrong game or saw the wrong. Maybe I'm just there. That's where I'm at. The concerns that you had is the reason why I had him at 4. In addition to, I just do not trust his ability. He's very awesome around the rim. I don't trust his ability to get to the rim off the dribble like at all.
Right.
Um, that's probably like the biggest. Like he's a very good tough shot maker,
Oh yeah.
but to some extent, he takes too many tough shots for my liking. But also that's to me. I think to some extent that's like a comfort thing. Like you don't want to completely weed that stuff out of a guy's game if he's very comfortable with it.
Right.
For someone at his size, again, I just don't think he's 6'10". Maybe I'm just if I turn on the tape for another game, maybe I'll see it. I just did not see it when I watched the Kennesaw tape.
Right.
And the other thing that here's my question with about him with you.
Sure.
There are specific attempts that he takes, like spot up attempts. There are a couple times where I'm completely with you. Like if you leave him open and if he's balanced, he is just completely dead out. Like no matter where he's at on the floor. Like that one of the first things I wrote down when I watched him was just that. But is there an inconsistent release speed with him? Or maybe I'm just seeing it wrong. Like to me, there are certain times where like, he'll be in rhythm and it'll be a half a second, whole second, whatever. And then there's other times where it's like a nanosecond. He just gets it off as quick as he possibly can once he sees a contested defender. And not to say he won't make it, but there's inconsistent results. Like I feel like there's some times where he's sped up, is what I'm trying to say.
You're 100% right on that. You're 100% right on that, and that's just from him being young, and he sees the greats do it. So like if he sees Durant do it, he sees Melo do it, he sees Steph Curry do it. You know what I mean? It's just him young. He practices that stuff, and so when he gets into a game, he doesn't quite have the feel yet that he doesn't need to be that rushed. So I agree with that, but that's all 100%. Very minor. It's all very 100%. Minor to me.
I think it's minor too, but that was just something that popped off to me where it was just.
But here's why I'll say it's minor to me though, Matt. He's shooting 42% from three, and he's shooting like 50 some odd percent from the field.
Well, no, I'm saying like I feel like it could be greater if that wasn't happening, but. Again, I do think it's.
But that's something he'll learn as he matures. Yes.
Right. That's what I mean. Like, I think that's going to, improve over time. But that was just something that was like, I just found it interesting.
Absolutely.
Again, I have a whole lot of questions about his ability to get to the rim and his ability to create separation.
Right.
And not saying he can't do it. Again, it's so early in the season. He's going to be in a very physical Big Ten conference.
Yep.
Can't wait. So, yeah, that's going to be like, I'm really going to be interested to see how he plays there. Again, I don't know why they list him as a point guard.
That doesn't make any sense. He's not a point guard. He's a forward.
Exactly.
He's a forward. Yeah, for sure. But let's talk about our number one pick. The big reveal, the thing that everybody's been waiting for. Who do we have? Possibly number one overall is Cooper Flagg. Not Donovan Dent? Yeah, and it's not Donovan Dent.
No, I said Will Riley.
Will Riley? No, not Will Riley. Cooper Flagg from your Duke Blue Devils, number one on Matt and I's big board. He is the real deal, man. Complete player, very unselfish player, maybe to a fault. He doesn't really show that aggressiveness that you would seek out of a number one overall pick. The generational stuff may be a little bit overblown. Wemby's generational, right? Like he's once in a generation type talent. Cooper Flagg is an excellent player, definitely deserves to be number one pick. Can shoot the ball, can handle the ball. His handles need to get tighter, though, if he's going to go to the next level and handle like that. But he can shoot on the move. He can shoot off the catch. He can attack the basket. He can rebound. He can play passing lanes. He can facilitate. I just think he's a great teammate as well. I like the guy. I like his game. What are your thoughts on Cooper Flagg?
The defensive ability is so, like, his ability to block shots. Um, and his just, to me, I think he has I know Major's not in the audience right now. I know Major watched the Arizona game and said that he didn't have a high motor, or at least like the effort stuff wasn't there all the time. Not to call Major out or anything, but like to me, at least in the games that I've watched, like I will say I wasn't like super duper locked in to Flagg specifically during that Arizona game. But to me, just in general, like I think he does have like a high motor when it comes to the rebounding, when it comes to doing everything, the winning basketball plays on the floor. Like I do agree that he needs to improve his handle, and I think that's something that will improve over time. How do you feel about his jump shooting?
I like his jump shot. I think he's got a very nice jump shot. Now there's some goofy footwork at times that he needs to clean up. He takes some weird like hop, like big plodding hop to get into his J sometimes. He just needs to calm his feet a little bit and square his shoulders, but I just think that's something that he's young and he'll iron out.
I'm with you, but I had similar thoughts. But no, man, I love his game. He's awesome defensively. I am with you with the generational stuff. I don't think he's quite generational. I also just think we just throw that term too loosely.
Yes.
In today's day and age. Not to say he won't be a great player. I mean, the people were talking about him being the best player on the select team when he wasn't even in college yet. Like he didn't even step foot at Duke yet, and he was better on a same. He was the best player on a team with like Jaime Jaquez,
yeah.
Duran. Yeah, like all those guys, and so
and he's
I
19.
He's 19. Like he's definitely going to be grown into his body in addition to growing his game and like his competitive nature. To me, he's quiet to some extent. Like he's not like he's fiery,
right?
But to me, like I think he's so unbelievably competitive when you watch him on the floor. At least more like he's always calm and cool, but to me he's just like a fight. Like he's just a ruthless competitor, and
absolutely.
In a good way.
No, absolutely. And here's what I want to say.
That I like.
Absolutely. And here's what I want to say to Major Money, not to call Major out or anything. The NBA players who he played with said the thing that stands out to them the most is his work ethic.
I think he was just saying, like in that specific game, where like him not diving for loose balls or the effort and whatnot. But
right.
Again, that's one game. That's fine. I'm extrapolating games from Ace Bailey about him being like 6'2".
That's right. Ace
like,
Bailey's only 6'2". Like, that's right.
Yeah, like it's just one game early in the season, but
no.
Everything that I've seen from Cooper so far has been good. And it again, not a fucking point guard. Please come on, Fanspo.
Yeah, I don't know why Fanspo's calling every single player a point guard.
Scroll down. I want to see like how they have some of these guys. Right?
Kamala Watch is fine. Queen is fine, but yeah, Edgecombe isn't a point guard either.
Yeah, he's not.
Yeah, but anyway,
I didn't have Liam McNeely as a point guard.
So, guys, real quick before we get out of here, because this has been an hour-long thing. Just want to thank you for stopping by. Thank you for watching on all the social media and YouTube channels that we're going to put this on. This draft class is extremely deep. It's going to be a long draft evaluation process. These big boards are fluid. We're going to do this again. We're going to talk about some of the other prospects outside of our top 10 as well. In the future, we're going to save Liam McNeely for another day.
I don't know how he's doing right now, but by God, was I disappointed.
I said another day, Matt.
I'm just saying.
You gotta put the hook in there so they come back.
You're not gonna be hearing me talk about this Memphis game, folks, in the future when it comes to Liam McNeely, but We'll get to it in the future. We'll get to it in the future.
All right. Well, that is it for us today, guys. We'll see you next time. Thanks for stopping by.